Hey everybody, and welcome to the new agent telesales process call. My name is Marysa Maggio. I'm super excited to be going through this with you guys. Now, first and foremost, if you don't have your one call close script in front of you, get off this call because it's not going to serve you. The one call close script is right on fflsolidity.com. So if you do not have it, please jump on there, get that script. Your mentor, your upline, they probably already sent this over to you. But with that all being said, we're going to get started. All right, so first and foremost, I just want to quickly talk about mindset. Now, you want to remember when you're on the phone and you're helping families, you're just simply there to help that family. We can sometimes overthink the process and we can almost think our way out of control, so to say. You also want to remember you hold the license. So it would be a disservice to not be honest with your potential prospect. Now, of course, I mean ethically and morally honest. I think that goes, without even needing to be said. But more so, what I mean is being able to have hard conversations about people about what this actually looks like when this day should come, right? So if you tell Miss Mary, who has no final expense coverage, oh, yeah, I'll follow up with you in 6 months. Have an awesome day. And you send her a Christmas card. That's not going to serve her or her family. So we want to make sure that we're being honest with our clients about what their situation truly looks like. Also, you want to remember positive self-talk is important. Now, in terms of this, I would also put in get on to the dial team as your self-talk should improve with you being on there with a bunch of other people doing it alongside you and being able to ask questions. Now, you do want to remember being on the phone, it's just a conversation, right? If you got that far into the conversation, if anyone can help that family, it's you. You want to have the mindset almost like you're a state employee sitting behind a desk, and this is what you do all day. So you're very rhythmic. You're just asking questions. You're following a legit script, which is great. And I'm going to kind of dissect this today. And that's your job because, guys, that is your job is to sit there and help families, right? Give that service. All we're doing is we're finding the problem, which is the lack thereof of insurance, so to say, and we're providing a solution to that family situation. The solution is the plan that you're offering to solve the problem. As an example, somebody does not have any final expense coverage. Americo, Eagle Premier, Whole Life would be the solution. So just an example of problem and solution. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? So what are the key components in the sales process? So throughout the script, guys, you're going to see a bunch of different things that might not make sense to you in the beginning. You might say, well, why are we saying that? Why are we saying that? Here's what I'm going to ask you. For the first 90 days, just trust in what we're showing you. It's proven to work, and there's a reason why we do it in the order that we do it. So we're going to talk about the introduction. We're going to talk about setting structure. We're going to talk about make sure we're reading off that client suitability script. We're going to talk about dissecting the why and going into the financial inventory. We're going to talk about assessing health, which is huge with what we do. And then we're going to talk about the pitch, the close, and starting that application to help that family. Now, with all that being said, in your intro, I do want to just point this out. Maybe you're not working a legit final expense lead. Maybe you're working an internet lead. Your introduction is going to change very slightly, okay? So I have, again, the one call close final expense script in front of me. I want to be clear, guys. You can use this for any and every presentation. You're just going to have to tweak and adjust literally the first couple of lines to fit that, type of lead. However, if we are doing final expense, it's, we're going to rock with John and Mary. Hey, John, this is Marysa. I was just giving you a quick call here from the Benefits Center here in Massachusetts. How are you today? Doing great, great. Just letting you know, we did get the request you sent in for the Massachusetts final expense programs. I have your date of birth listed here as 102755, is that correct? Perfect. I'm just the medical underwriter assigned to your file. My job's super simple. I'm the one who goes over eligibility and assists you in getting coverage with the state's discounted programs. So to take a pause there, all I'm trying to do is introduce who I am, right? Who am I to John and Mary? They don't know me. They only sent a request in some way, shape, or form. They want to know, who am I? Same thing if you're working an internet lead. The only way that this script of the introduction is going to change is, hey, John, this is Marysa. I was actually just quickly getting back to you about the request you had filled out regarding the state regulated life insurance programs. You had put your beneficiary down as Mary Jones. Is that correct? Great. I have your date of birth listed here as boom, boom, boom. Is that correct? Same thing. I'm just the medical underwriter. So all I'm doing is tweaking that first sentence. So I want to make sure that we're clear on that before I jump into the script. And maybe you say, I'm working internet lead, so I don't really know how this is going to serve me. This is going to serve you tremendously, as we're just changing that top line, okay? So with introduction, you're introducing who you are really calmly. You're just letting them know, hey, I'm Marysa Maggio. I got your request. You want to let them know why you're calling. It's important to make this point. Like, you are not a telemarketer if you are calling our leads. You are not a telemarketer. So you're establishing why you're calling, and then you're establishing that you're getting back to them. So therefore, you're not reaching out cold, you're reaching out about their request. And now the biggest thing to keep in mind on telesales is your tonality. It's really easy to hit, high highs and low lows, if you will, in terms of your tone from the beginning to the end. It's important to just stay nice and steady, no matter what they're saying, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Just keep a nice, smooth tonality, and you'll realize that that typically calms your client as well. Now, structure. So going into structure, just to be clear, again, I'm on this first page, but I'm at the bottom. It's now John and Mary. Now John, we'll just say John's, the main person on the phone. Grab a pen and paper so I can give you your credentials. That way you know exactly who you're talking to, right? So this is where I'm going to give John my first name, my last name, my national producer number, etc. Now, why is this important? It's important because you're establishing credibility, which is important. It's also important because when you tell John, grab a pen and paper, and he does, you're taking control of that conversation. So you just essentially took the control and put it into your hands. And that is what you truly need to be able to actually service a client, okay? You don't want them to be in control of the conversation and you feel like you're getting interviewed about life insurance. You're there as the medical underwriter to walk them through eligibility and help them, apply for coverage, with the state's programs. Okay. So we're establishing credibility, who we are. We're giving them our name, our NPN. Some people like to send out their actual physical license. If you're doing non-resident states, you can go ahead and do that as well. Just something to kind of keep a bookmark of. Personally, what I do, I have them write down my first name, my last name, my national producer number. I let them know they just require me by law to leave you with that information. That way, you're speaking with a licensed and active professional here in the state of Massachusetts. Now, with that all being said, we do want to make sure that we are giving that credibility, right? You got to give credibility to get credibility, right? So first name, last name, national producer number, explaining what the national producer number is. The great part about this, guys, it's all in the script. Truly, it's all in there. I'm dissecting this to help us all understand kind of why we are saying these things, right? Now, next would be the 3 reasons why people send these requests in. So this is where you're going to kind of put out your feelers. You had already asked in the beginning, did they fill it out like most families? They just wanted to make sure that, funeral expenses wouldn't fall burden on a loved one. And they typically are going to say yes. Okay, great. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to establish structure, have them grab that pen and paper, write down your name, your NPN, send over that license or, your credibility sheet, whatever it is that you feel or want to send. go ahead and do that. Now, 3 reasons why people send these requests in. This has really helped me with clarity going through the process and again, establishing just this structure. So I always will say there's 3 reasons why people fill these, forms out or send these requests in, so to say. The first reason is, John, they don't have any life insurance coverage at all. The second is they already have life insurance, but they're looking to potentially add a little bit more. And the third is they already have life insurance, but they just want to make sure that they're not overpaying for it. With that being said, what category do you fall into there? And just wait, they're going to tell you which one they fall into. Now, the reason that that's important is because we'd like to know on the front end before we even ask, do they have life insurance? Are they shopping around quotes? Um, you know, are they just simply looking to add a little bit more, right? Like kind of where are they at, right? Um, so structure is going to decrease sales pressure and it's going to increase credibility. So if you let the client know where you're at and what the process is going to look like, it's going to put down a lot of their barriers, which is going to be right here, client suitability script. Now, again, looking right back at the script, says client suitability. This right here in front of me is what we refer to as the client suitability sheet. It's just going to help me best guide how to serve you and your family to see if you'd even need something like this. We're going to spend about a minute or two on yourself and your financial situation, just to make sure everything is affordable and within budget. Typically, we don't have a problem with that, John, just because these were designed for folks on a fixed income. Then we'll spend about 2 minutes on your health. That's just going to help me navigate which one of these 26 or so different A-rated carriers would most likely give you an approval today. Does that make sense? So guys, that's this part, but this part's really important because we don't want to kidnap our client. You put somebody on a bus, you don't tell them where you're going, that's kidnapping, right? So we want to make sure that the client's meeting us where we're at. So don't kidnap your client. What I mean by that is you want to make sure you're setting that stage, right? You're letting them know what you're there to accomplish. You're letting them know you're going to talk to them about finances. You're going to talk to them about health. You're going to talk to them about what they already have in place. You brought up affordability. So we're being proactive about affordability, not reactive at the end. You're the professional. So guys, when we're on the phone in your first day, your first week, your first month, it might not feel this way, but you want to feel like you've done this 20 times that day and all you do is just take calls, help people with their insurance, and you move on. That's the tonality and the essentially the guidance we want to have for this whole process. Okay, just super relaxed. This is again, it's going to help eliminate objections. Any objections that I get, I would rather get them in the first 5 minutes than get it all the way at the end when I've shown options, I've went above and beyond, and I'm like, okay, now what, right? So if we can eliminate those objections on the front end, that is extremely important. We'll see that kind of throughout this process. Now, the next part is going to be the why, and going into the client suitability sheet. Slash financial inventory. So those are interchangeable. So if you're like, I thought we used financial inventory, we do. Financial inventory, client suitability sheet, same exact thing, just in case anybody was confused there. So there is a big importance of asking good questions. Now, guys, the reason why I love the fact that on telesales, we literally can have a script that we just read it, there's a lot of power in that, especially when you're brand new. First of all, guys, we want to remember that the client doesn't know what we're quote unquote supposed to say, okay? But you want to make sure that you're asking these questions. Now, these questions can be uncomfortable, but they're extremely necessary because if not, it can seem extremely transactional. And if there's no why behind doing this, you might get to the end and think you did an amazing job, but we never even talked about the beneficiary. We never painted a picture. We never allowed the client to actually see what things would look like in the event that this does take place, right? So in the why, we're really digging in, now, John, God forbid you were to pass away, today, who would be the beneficiary picking up the pieces tomorrow? Okay, and then we have Mary, let's just say, his wife, Mary. All right. Now, if it is somebody who's young, you want to throw a comment in there like, okay, wow, okay, your son who's 20 years old, wow, we definitely need to make sure we can get you covered. God forbid, that way it doesn't fall a burden on them. That's all in the script, guys, all right? Have you ever thought about being buried or cremated? Do you know how much that costs nowadays? It's important to dig in on it, guys. If you don't know if they want a burial or cremation, when you go to pitch the actual program, you're not going to have a lot to say because you don't really know what they need. Again, you want to ask good questions, right? Um, do you or Mary have that saved up? So do you know how much it costs? That's important. Um, do you and Mary have that saved up? God forbid something were to happen. Do you have any life insurance now that would offset, the cost of your final expenses? Okay, again, we're looking at that. And now one thing I do think that is really important, you'll see after question 5 is, why haven't you ever put anything in place? Is it affordability or eligibility? And here right now, that question sometimes is going to take a lot off the table for you in terms of if somebody says affordability, you can be like, okay, great, John. I'm really happy that we're on the phone today because again, my job's to do the shopping around for you to get you the absolute lowest rate. Okay. So we're going to make sure we lock something in today. Now, these who, what, when, where, how, why questions, so to say that you're going to see here, you're going to see on the script, they might not be comfortable, so to say, but life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Every single day when you get uncomfortable and you ask these questions, you're going to see the value build like tremendously. Like you're going to be like, wow, I didn't even think that that mattered that much, right? And then you'll start to dissect it and you'll start to get more comfortable with the questions. Guys, our job is to ask questions. Like that's our literal job is to ask questions to help find the problem, to help identify it, to help solve it. All right. Now, with that all being said, if you do not ask questions, you do not want to expect a yes at the end, there was no value built. At this point, we're going to go into the client suitability sheet, AKA the financial inventory. Okay. Now, with that being said, it's important to ask somebody, if you know that they're working, cool, you know that they're working. So now it brings you into now, are you currently working, retired, or disabled? Now, this is important. I speak with folks all the time who are on disability, and this is what I always say. So they'll say, I'm disabled. And it's, guys, this is super, super important what I'm going to hit on here because it goes into the bank question, okay? And we want to make sure that we're, again, setting ourselves and our clients up with the proper expectations and for success. With that being said, are you currently working, retired, or disabled? They say that they're disabled. I'm going to say, bless your heart, and how much do you receive monthly through disability benefits? They're going to tell me what they receive monthly. They say I receive, $1,162 a month. Okay, now, John, do you receive your disability via direct deposit to your bank account, or do you receive it through the state's green direct express card? Right. Now, the reason why that's important is because not every carrier is going to take that direct express card. AIG, Prosperity are going to be our two kind of go-tos, if you will, when we're talking about that direct express card. So we want to make sure that we're getting that out in the beginning. But if they say, no, I bank with, my local credit union, here, Savings One Credit Union. All right, beautiful. You're moving on, right? You just want to know if they're going to be using for their payment method a bank account because it opens them up to every carrier versus that direct express card where it limits them, but we are still able to get them coverage. You just know where to shop. Okay. So that's really, really important. Okay. Make sure that you ask that. It even says on the script, important in bold. All right. If you follow on the script, as we go through this, this should all be making sense. If you're not following the script, do me and yourself a favor and jump off this because it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. Okay. Now, going into health. Okay. You can use the script one of two ways. You can use it so that you kind of print out the health questions and on every person you're kind of circling them. or you can just ask the health questions and transition it over to your financial inventory or client suitability sheet, which is what I personally do. I just don't think it's necessary to print the script out that many times, okay? Now, either way, whatever floats your boat, okay? So now health. If you make it awkward, it's going to be awkward. Just ask the questions directly from the script, okay? You want to dig deep into health, guys. It's not to be invasive. Like, it's truly not. And again, you're the medical underwriter assigned to the file. It would be odd if you didn't ask about their health, okay? Now, these questions are, again, coming right off the script. Are you a smoker or a non-smoker? Let's see. And as you kind of go through them, you'll get used to asking them in your own way, which is completely fine, but you just want to get everything on the table, okay? Any heart attacks, heart failure, strokes, TIA in the past 5 years, any cancer in the past 5 years, any diabetes, neuropathy, high blood pressure, and the list goes all the way on, okay? Now, you might be like, that's a lot of questions. Okay, but here's what I can tell you. If you do not ask the questions and you run an application, you are so likely to get that person declined. Not only is that hurting you as the agent, it's also hurting the applicant because now they have a decline on their actual insurance record. And yes, that is a real thing. If you aren't familiar with the industry, the insurance carriers, quote unquote, they share information, so to say, as it pertains to clients, just to make sure that everything is going the way it's supposed to be. There's not fraud and things of that sort happening. So you want to remember that they are indeed monitoring these things. So you want to make sure you're asking the questions. Because if you don't ask the questions, 10 to 1 says you're going to have to run carrier A, then you're going to have to run carrier B, then you're going to have to run carrier C. And then before you know it, like all you had to do was ask, have you ever been diagnosed with cancer? And, God forbid, John says, yes, I'm currently battling cancer. We can still get him coverage, but we just know we want to shop with AIG or Corbridge, right? We want to shop a guaranteed issue product. So with that being said, it is okay to give yourself time here. If not, you're probably going to have to spend a whole lot more time later running multiple different applications. So here where you're collecting that health history, it's so important that I don't care if you're using insurance toolkits, whatever it is, but if you're part of my group, you're on Zoom and you're probably right there. Hey, unmute yourself. Hey, can anyone hear me? Someone's going to say yes. I have a client. I'm just going to give you guys a fake example. I have a client. He's 70 years old. He's not a smoker. He's looking to cover his final expenses for his wife, Mary. He takes lisinopril 10 milligrams once a day, and he takes metformin for diabetes type 2 that's well under control twice a day. And he had cancer 4 years ago. What's going to be the best way to go? Okay. That way you're getting that answer. So you're not running 85 different applications. You just know, okay, for example, Americo might be a good choice. Amiam Senior Choice might be a good choice to go with. Instead of running multiple different applications for that client, you don't want to do it for yourself and you don't want to do it for your client, okay? So take your time digging in on health and ask questions. It's only awkward if you make it awkward, okay? Now, this is going to be super important. I know I probably said that on every slide. The reason for that is because every slide in my eyes truly is super, super important. Okay, now before you show options, so this is going to be before you show options, the pitch, close, and starting the application. So we're kind of just transitioning you into that. It's important to hit them with that one-liner that says, before presenting numbers on the script. All right, now, John, the way that this works, it's not like your local grocery store where you see it, you like it, you buy it, like a loaf of bread. With this kind of thing, we have to get you approved for it. The carriers will take a look at what they refer to as your MIB, or your Medical Information Bureau. This is just a compilation of your medical records, hospitalizations, and prescriptions over the last 5 to 7 years. So guys, you're setting them up to let them know, hey, we don't even know if we can get you approved, and again, you want to do this before you're presenting your numbers. That is key, okay? So we can't make our final decision today because it's up to the carrier if they want to approve you, which is why I asked about your medications and health concerns. You customize the entire plan. I'm just the one who guides you through the process and helps you send in the request for coverage. Now, you want to have them grab a pen and paper. Guys, I can tell you doing telesales, if a person will not grab a pen and paper, they are not taking you seriously. Like they already wrote down your name at the beginning. They already wrote down your NPN. Like get that pen and paper. Hey, John, if you don't have that pen and paper, go ahead and grab it for me. I'm going to have you write a few things down as it pertains to your plan, okay? I can't tell you guys how many people I have helped because I actually took the time to explain these elements to them as it pertains to a whole life policy. Because some people are just simply confused about, is this whole life? Is this term? How do I know I'm making the right decision? We want to make sure that they're making an educated decision, but we have to educate them as well, with that being said, right? So John, I'm going to have you write down immediate coverage. This means as soon as you make your first premium payment, you're covered day one. There's no 2-year waiting period. So I'm having John write down immediate coverage. Next thing I'm going to have you write down is lock in. This means that the price is never going to increase and the coverage is never going to decrease. Okay, John? So you're always at a flat rate. It will never go higher or lower. Does that make sense? Guys, I use does that make sense probably at least 40 times throughout this. You just want to make sure that they're following along with you. You want to get them on that yes train. Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. Write down tax-free. The death benefit is tax-free, and the cash value are one of the few things that you don't have to pay Uncle Sam for. We usually get a little chuckle there, right? Write down living benefits. This one's important. If you have a terminal illness and the doctor gives you, depending on the state you're in, I want to be disclaimer, 12 to 24 months to live, you'll have access to 50% of the death benefit tax-free while you're still living, okay? Next thing I'm going to have you write down is cash value. So there's going to be 7 things they're writing down. They're all here. We'll accumulate cash value over time. I don't recommend you ever borrow against it, but it is important to know that that is part of your policy. If you're writing like a product like Americo Eagle, that's when we're using that number 6 about the double accidental. Okay, I just want to make sure that we don't use that in the wrong place, so to say. And then last thing I'm going to have you write down, John, is permanent coverage. This means that the coverage is never going to expire on you. It's a true whole life policy. Okay. If you don't have them write down those seven points, like my personal opinion, your probability of closing just went down like 30%. Okay. Have them write it down. Now you're gonna, at this point, you already kind of hopefully have, quoted your client. And by the way, take your time in doing that. Again, you want to think about yourself like you're behind a desk, working in a state office, and you have to pull up the options. It's okay to ask them kindly, hey, just hang on a minute or two while we process these options for you. However you want to say that, hang on a minute or two while the computer, go ahead and calculates, the best options for you based off what we've gathered. I do always recommend showing 3 options. For final expense, I always show bronze, silver, and gold. Just as an example of that, bronze, and I do want to make sure that they know what it does, right? So we want to make sure we're explaining what each one of these plans is going to do for their beneficiary. So I'm going to say, John, you still have that pen and paper, right? He's going to tell me yes. I'm going to have you write down option A, B, and C. Now, let's just say that John wants to be buried, and let's just give a hypothetical that John lives in the state of Massachusetts. John is 65 years old, and we're covering his final expenses, and he does not have any life insurance. The bronze plan that I'm going to show John is going to be $10,000. The reason for that is if we take a step back, we ask, do you know how much that costs on average, right? So my bronze plan is going to be $10,000, John. So I'm going to have them write out bronze, silver, gold, or A, B, and C, whatever floats your boat. Okay. Next to the bronze plan, John, I'm going to have you write 10,000. Next to the silver plan, John, I'm going to have you write 20,000. And next to the gold plan, John, I'm going to have you write 40,000. Okay. Once he has that down, I'm going to explain it. So John, as we talked about, this is a whole life policy, meaning it's there for your entire life. Nothing's ever going to go higher or lower. Everything always stays nice and steady for you and Mary, okay? Now, looking here at the bronze option, this would be covering your final expenses for your burial, give or take as it stands today. So, John, when you do pass on, this would make sure that bare minimum, Mary's always going to have that $10,000 to make sure she can properly put you to rest. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. Any questions? All right. Now moving on. Now, the silver plan, what this is going to do, John, this one's for 20,000. So we're taking into account not only the average cost of a burial today as it stands in Massachusetts, but also taking into account inflation. You and I both know the average cost of bread, water, food, you name it, is on the up and up. So is the average cost of final expenses. It's just simply going to move with the inflation, right? They're always going to agree with you. No one's going to agree that inflation's not happening. It's definitely real. Now, this is going to make sure that, this is going to cover you for the average cost today, but also taking into account, 15 or 20 years of inflation. This would make sure, Lord willing, you live a long, healthy life, John. This is going to make sure that Miss Mary can always properly put you to rest and will always have the proper amount of coverage, and you're not needing to add any more coverage at a later date. This is typically one of our most common options. And now the gold plan, John, is going to be the most comprehensive coverage. What I mean by that is this is going to make sure, just like we talked about in the bronze and the silver plan, it's going to make sure the average cost today is covered. Also taking into account, 15, 20 years of inflation, and then leaving a bit extra behind for Miss Mary. This one's going to cover you for $40,000. Okay. Does that make sense? Again, we want to make sure before we just start jumping through options and giving numbers and saying this is how much it costs, that it all makes sense. So guys, what I do, bronze, silver, gold, until everything makes sense, like everything, they don't have any question on any three of those plans, then I'm going to say, all right, so John, if we're looking at option, and guys, these are me just, by the way, I'm making up numbers right here, so do not use this as like a quoting tool or anything of that sort, just disclaimer. So John, if we're looking at option A to protect Miss Mary, we'd be looking at $55 a month. If we're looking at option B to protect Mary, we'd be looking at $120 a month. We're looking at option C, or that gold plan to cover Miss Mary, we'd be looking at $250 a month. Now, John, with that being said, which one of these are you comfortable with? Should we look up, down, or apply for one of these? And then I'm going to stop talking. Guys, it's really important that when you ask that golden question as it's, phrased on the actual script, that you stop talking after. You might want to like put your input in unless they ask for your input. And like I say this like because I care. Like I say this because I've done it so many times. Do not start talking. Let them pick their option. 9 out of 10 times, they're going to pick an option and you're just going to move right into the application. Okay. So let them pick the option and start the application. Okay. With that process, guys, again, the script goes right into it, how we're just going to be sending up a request for coverage and hope for an approval. If they decline it, we go with the next lowest option. I'll be confirming some of your basic information, reiterating some medical questions, putting down your beneficiary and choosing that effective date. And now what I do like to ask when I'm going into the application is, now, John, is this something you've been thinking about for a while? And usually they say yes. And I'll say, oh, good, I'm happy we're getting it off your plate today. And then just go right into the application, guys. So this is really important that you kind of follow this, from the pitch to the application process, because it's going to make sure that you're, again, setting the stage and keeping that structure throughout your appointment, okay? So in the application, every app is a little bit different, but pretty much the same. I do just want to stay here for a moment in terms of some things that, pop up at times, which is, Why do you need my social security number? Well, guys, if we go back to the social security of, objection, so to say, we talk about that medical information bureau or MIB, which is why we need their social, right? So they say, oh, I don't really feel like comfortable giving that to you over the phone. Hopefully at this point, you've made them feel comfortable enough. I completely understand. Now, the main reason I ask that is that's how they identify you by John Smith, and your first and last name. And most importantly, your social security number is the only thing on your death certificate when you die for them to pay out. Okay. Another way that you can do this for transparency is you can send them a picture of the actual application, like showing them Americo, for example, and you send them like a photo of you needing that information. That way they're going to see their name and the app number, the day and time, hopefully on your computer screen. And that can sometimes help establish trust. And it's also just to validate their identity to make sure that, you're not doing fraud or anything of that sort. You can talk about anti-money laundering. I don't want to make this call all about objections, but I do just want to make sure that the places that we're going to get kind of hung up sometimes on the application can be the social and the bank, and that's why we're setting ourselves up for success using this script. So make sure we're using that to make sure we're pulling things out that need to be pulled out. Okay, so just to kind of reiterate what we talked about, in this last slide here, not like your local grocery store, you have to qualify. Have them write down those key points, so 6 or 7, depending on what carrier you're looking at. Show 3 options, whether that's A, B, C, or bronze, silver, gold. Ask the closing question. Take a step back. Show the 3 options, A, B, C, bronze, silver, gold, and you want to make sure as you're going through that, you're explaining what it's going to do for their beneficiary. So when I was saying this is covering the average cost today to make sure, God forbid, something happens, Mary's always going to have that $10,000 to make sure that she can properly put you to rest. Then I started talking about inflation. Then I started talking about legacy, so to say, or leaving a little bit extra behind. So we always want to reiterate what it's going to do for the beneficiary, because if not, it can seem extremely transactional, okay? Ask the closing question. Which one of these are you comfortable with? Should we look up, down, apply for one of these? And stop plugging. Let them pick their option, start the application. If your applicant is approved, absolutely let them know that they're approved, congratulate them, leave them with their application number and their policy information. And if they're not approved, you also want to let them know what to expect. Hey, I should have an answer back in the next, 1 to 5 business days, okay? As soon as I have that answer back, I will give you a call and let you know. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. So you want to make sure that, you are pointing them back to you, right? Like I'm going to be the person you're dealing with, okay? But if they're approved, leave them with all their policy information, congratulate them. And guys, it can feel kind of tedious sometimes playing catch up with your clients if they're not getting that kind of instant decision, so to say. So go for those carriers that do have instant decision, okay? But outside of that, guys, I hope that this was helpful in terms of what a telesales structure should look like, and more importantly, kind of the psychology behind the script. That's really what I was hoping to get out of this today. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. I look forward to working with each and every one of you guys. Make it an amazing day. If anybody needs me, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. If you don't have my phone number, my number is 607-778-9615. And again, guys, my name is Marysa Maggio. It was a pleasure being on with you guys today. Make it a massive day. Move fast and break things. Appreciate you guys. Take care.